Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. My name's Brian. We talk about physical media here. And continuing my sort of best of the year stuff, I wanted to talk about some Blu-rays. Now, this particular video is going to be interesting because, as with everything I do, it's always through the lens of what I like, which is certainly not what everybody likes. So when I do best Blu-rays of the year or my favorites, a lot of it has to do with the movies themselves. And I've said this before. It's just one of those things where I just like certain kinds of things. And so I'm not always about the best special features ever or whatever. It's more about, almost all my picks are going to be about the movies ultimately, but in particular, this group will seem probably odd because I'm going to have probably a lot of movies that aren't going to be on other best of lists, and that's fine for me. I'm sure there definitely will be some in here that are on other lists, but yeah, I'm okay with that because this is stuff I want to highlight. So I will start with a really important and fascinating movie, Hollywood 90028, aka the Hollywood Hillside Strangler. This is a Grindhouse release. It comes with the Basil Polidoris soundtrack score. It, Bob Moraski's company painstakingly restored this Christina Hornisher film, and it has just a beautiful restoration. This is a movie that was not really known. In some circles, yes, people know it, but I feel like it's still pretty unknown, pretty off the radar for most folks, just because it was really hard to see, especially in a good version. And the New Bev ran it at the theater, and I saw it that way, and just, oh no, I didn't get to see it at the theater. My bad. I was talking to people who went to it. It has an incredible ending, literally breathtaking in this sort of shocking way and also just kind of like, how did they do that? But yeah, kind of, a dark story of a guy who works in porno films and, meets women, ends up strangling women, and it's dark stuff, but it's really kind of art house, kind of grindhouse. This has an audio commentary by Mark Edward Hoyk and Heidi Honeycutt and Sean Langrick. Very good stuff. The bonus CD I mentioned, just a movie that really needs to be seen. And so I want to put it at the top of the show, top of the list, as a really special release for this year. High recommend for genre fans. Really, really something that if it had come out from Vinegar Syndrome, I think more people would be talking about it. But I still feel like the Blu-ray community has picked up on how great Grindhouse releasing is, and so I know folks know about it. Anyway, so that's number one. Then I have Planet of the Vampires. This has come out from Kino. I don't think they've done a 4K yet, but this is a 4K scan. This is from Radiance. This is a region. Oh, this is an all-region disc. Comes with a book and Mario Bava, All the Colors of the Dark, Transmissions from a Haunted World documentary, new doc. Lamberto Bava interview, Super 8 version. Josh Olson and Joe Dante trailer commentaries, and of course a Tim Lucas commentary. I love Radiance. I wanted to highlight them more. Definitely check them out. Keep an eye on what they're doing. They're just really putting out a ton of interesting stuff, especially in the Asian cinema space. So much stuff I've never heard of that I haven't even had time to catch up with fully. But this is a big favorite Mario Bava film, and this is the best version for me to date of the film. So definitely check out the Radiance UK version of Planet of the Vampires, if it's still available. I think it might be. That's a good question in terms of some of these. I don't 100% know if they're still available, but I hope so. Then quickly next, we have one from Cinematograph. We have the Red Rock West Blu-ray, their first Blu-ray release. They did a 4K as well of Little Darlings, which will probably come up in the 4K video, but definitely the best version of this, that is out there right now. There was an import, and I want to say it was an Umbrella had just put it out, but this has a new interview with John Dahl, actually a couple interviews with him, and new commentary track by Alan Silver and Christopher Coppola. Desperate Times, Call for Desperate Measures video essay by Chris O'Neill. I'm a big fan of Chris O'Neill. And archival interview with the editor. And it's new 4K restoration from the 35 Interpositive. But one of the great neo-noirs ever. I mean, Nick Cage in this, just incredible. So definitely a strong start for Cinematograph with this as one of their titles. So definitely one of my favorite Blu-rays of the year from them. Then we have, let's do some Fun City editions. So we have Deep in the Heart, aka Handgun. And this one I've definitely seen on other shows, mentioned on the Big Picture show, which, by the way, if you haven't seen or listened to the physical media show that Sean Fantasy did with Tracy Letts, oh my goodness. One of my favorite podcasts / video, YouTube pods of the year, hands down, bar none. So catnip. So for this audience, like, they're talking all about Tracy's love of physical media, and he's a notorious collector, but not on social media. His wife, Carrie Coon, is on physical media and sometimes tweets about their movie nights and stuff, but it is quite the interview, and he is quite the guy. I just loved him, and they just talk about so much stuff. So anyway, this comes up, as does Fun City Editions, which is great. Tracy's a big fan of Fun City, as he should be. But yeah, this movie, really something special, one I hadn't heard of, and sort of a kind of a rape revenge story, but a little different than some of the others that you've seen, because the woman becomes a little bit more involved with the guy who ends up assaulting her, and she takes the assault obviously very seriously, but to a point where she really goes after this guy, starts learning to shoot a gun, and cuts her hair. And it's fascinating because it's written, produced, and directed by Tony Garnett, who's a British director, and it's shot in Texas. So you have a British take on Texas, and this whole kind of story. It is really impactful stuff. One of the best movies to come out on disc this year, but also one of the best Blu-rays. Also has a nice commentary from Chris O'Neill and Erica Schultz, and an archival interview with Tony Garnett. 35 restoration from its camera negative. Yeah, this is just a really special release that I can't recommend enough. Really, really solid stuff. I'll come back. I'll sprinkle in some Fun City Edition stuff throughout, but this is one I know that my friend Jonathan Hertzberg at Fun City would approve of. This is City of Hope on Blu-ray for the first time. John Sayles' film. Now, Sayles, one of my favorite filmmakers, hands down, a guy that I've loved for such a long time. And this one had not gotten a Blu-ray, had gotten a Laserdisc release and a VHS, but no DVD. So until 2024, City of Hope, which, to be fair, is available streaming on, Vudu and other Amazon, those platforms. But this is such a great Sayles movie, in the top 5 movies he's ever made. And because of its lack of availability, I don't know, it seems like it's less talked about. Definitely an influence, I think, on The Wire, David Simon's The Wire, because it's about this city and the government officials and the corruption, and sort of from the citizens on up, and it centers around a story of Vincent Spano's character, whose dad is Tony LoBianco, who's a kind of a mobster guy who does construction, and it sort of deals with him not wanting to be part of that anymore, like quitting a cake, do nothing construction job and then starting to figure out what else he wants to do with his life. But that sort of ties into some other things that happen. John Sayles is in the movie. John Sayles is great, but it's got an incredible cast. Joe Morton, Todd Graff, David Strathairn, Angela Bassett, Lawrence Tierney. It is just an incredible, sprawling city epic, widescreen 2:39:1. It has a commentary from Sayles. That's one of the things. You don't need another feature really, because Sayles' commentaries are just delightful. And so anyway, so great to finally have this from Sony on Blu-ray. Huge recommend from me, City of Hope. Let's see here. Okay. Something a little goofier. This one from Vinegar Syndrome Archive, The Instructor. Bob Chaney is the instructor. This is just one of those regional action movies that is such a blast to watch. It's directed by Don Bendel, and he stars in the movie as a character called Thumper, who's kind of the sidekick to Bob Chaney, who is the instructor, who was a real martial arts instructor. It ostensibly is about warring karate schools, a classic, Bruce Lee type story, but done in this very regional way. And it's filmed in, I'm going to forget where it's filmed, but way outside of Hollywood, and has like some great, just incredible chase scenes. There's a car chase that becomes a bike chase, that becomes a foot chase, some great, but a little clunky dialogue, but just, I had so much fun with this movie. So much fun. So I really can't recommend it enough. The Instructor, huge recommendation from Vinegar Syndrome Archive. Definitely one of my favorite VSA releases in a long time. I don't know if this one's still available either. I apologize. Definitely the secondary market, but just a blast for regional martial arts entertainment. Back over to Fun City Editions, we have Heavenly Bodies, which I am so excited that this has come out on Blu-ray. This is another one that did not have a great DVD release, an official DVD release, and just incredibly entertaining, aerobics-based 80s movie. Favorite of my friend Phil Blankenship's, and he is the one who made me aware of it years and years ago. I know he was very excited about this Blu-ray. It's about a woman and her friends. They work as secretaries, but they pool their money and they buy an old warehouse and they make it into an aerobic studio. But then there's another aerobic studio across town that's sort of attached to a health club that's run by a rich guy and his girlfriend, jerky girlfriend. And they end up getting in competition because there's a new aerobics show on TV, and Cynthia Dale, who plays the lead, ends up getting that. And then it becomes the thing where they're going to take away her health club, take away Heavenly Bodies. That's what they call the club. And they have to have a competition that's aerobics based. I'm not going to go too far down this road. If you haven't seen it, highly entertaining, great soundtrack, which is one of the reasons maybe it was difficult to get out. 4K restoration from its 35 inner negative. New video interview with Cynthia Dale, new commentary with Millie DeChirico and Jeffrey Mixed. And just really, really exciting, fun 80s stuff that needed a Blu-ray and got it, and I'm so excited to have this on disc now. Okay, let's see here. Let's do from Imprint Films. Again, this is one that's not going to be on anybody else's list. I can guarantee it, but Banning. This is a golf noir from 1967, never on DVD either, as far as I know, only on VHS, and I had an import 4x3 DVD, but this is another widescreen 235 film, so it's finally getting a Blu-ray with that transfer, but it's about Robert Wagner plays, it's kind of like Caddyshack, like noir, like this guy shows up at a country club, starts shaking down the golf pro, the head of the golf pro section, for a job and then gets involved in like a big time. It's called the Calcutta, which is basically what they do at the end of Caddyshack. It's like a winner take all golf team competition, but there's all kinds of other like, restless housewives and that are borderline femme fatale, and just Robert Wagner being kind of creepy, being very arrogant. But there's just something about this movie. I've never seen another golf noir like this, and so I'm a big fan of it. New 2K scan of the inner positive, audio commentary, hole in one. There's a Robert Wagner and Jill St. John interview with author, film historian John Burlingame about the Quincy Jones score. It's got a great Quincy Jones score, isolated score track. You can just put that on, so that's great too. But this is one just that I discovered 3-4 years ago, I think, maybe. I don't know. At some point on Pure Cinema, I've talked about it, but I never thought we'd get a Blu-ray. So very excited that Imprint put this out on Blu-ray. Very cool. Another one from Kino, or from Vinegar Syndrome. We have 5-Card Stud, and this is a mystery western with Dean Martin, Robert Mitchum, and Yaphet Kotto, and Inger Stevens, Roddy McDowell, and directed by Henry Hathaway. Just a very interesting sort of, there's a card game at the beginning, somebody's cheated, and then people in that game start getting knocked off, who's doing the killing, kind of giallo western. I don't know what even to call it, but not going to be everybody's bag, but I'm a big fan of this one. I talked about this years ago when we did a mysteries episode of Pure Cinema with Ryan Johnson. I just think it's very underseen. And another one that had a DVD, but I didn't think was going to get a Blu-ray, especially not from Vinegar Syndrome. That was kind of a shock. But very cool. Newly scanned and restored in 4K from its 35 camera negative. Commentary with film historian and author Brian Hannon. Jack of all trades, Walter Chow on the films of Henry Hathaway. Lizzie Frankie on screenwriter Marguerite Roberts' legacy. So just a really cool, unexpected release from Vinegar Syndrome. 5-Card Stud. Okay, this one, well, let's see. Let's do this here. All right, let's do another Western. From Fun City Editions, we have Bad Company. This is Robert Benton's debut film. After he was a co-writer on Bonnie and Clyde, he started making some great movies in the 70s, and this is the first one, starring Barry Brown and Jeff Bridges, kind of about a kid played by Barry Brown who's trying to dodge the draft, ends up getting involved with a group of sort of ne'er-do-well youngsters, youngish guys, led by Jeff Bridges, and sort of their misadventures in the West. It's a little downbeat, but has comedic moments and has a great other gang led by the great David Huddleston, the real Jeff Lebowski in The Big Lebowski. I want to say Jeffrey Lewis is also in that gang, and there's some other recognizable folks in that group, and they sort of run afoul of the kid group. And anyway, great stuff. Really wonderful release, and has an Walter Chow audio commentary. New transfer from the, what does it say? I want to say, I don't remember where the scan is on this one, but it looks good, and it's, again, a first-time Blu-ray. That's what Fun City Edition does, and so I was a big fan of Bad Company. Let's see here. All right. Let's do some Kino. We'll start with The Lawyer. This one, I'm a gigantic fan of. New 4K scan of the 35 camera negative. So this is Barry Newman, who you may know from Vanishing Point and from Fear is the Key, both great. I think I put Fear is the Key on my Blu-ray list last year, or whenever it came out. But this became sort of the backdoor pilot for a movie called Petrocelli, or a show called Petrocelli. And so he's a Italian-American, Harvard-educated, lawyer who takes on this defense of this case of this guy who's accused of murdering his wife. and fascinating story. We get to sort of see a Rashomani, a couple Rashomani versions of what happened the night, because he claims to have passed out and woken up and gone upstairs and seen somebody in his wife's room, and then passed out again, and then they woke up and she was bludgeoned to death. And so he has to defend this guy. But he's great. He's just so good at it as this character. I love Barry Newman as an actor. This is a Sidney J. Furie film. Audio commentary with Daniel Creamer and film director Paul Lynch, with archival interview excerpts from Sidney J. Furie. There's an interview with Barry Newman and an interview with actress Diana Muldaur, who's his wife in this, and she's great. He drives like a camper truck. It's just a really, really great and a very interesting score too. Kind of like almost like a goofy 70s. I can't explain it, but I love this movie. I love. Like I watched it a few years ago and liked it, and then I saw this Blu-ray again and I was like, oh man, just so much fun. I'm a big courtroom drama guy, so this is going to be right up my alley. Anyway, that is The Lawyer. Let's mix this up. Let's keep mixing this up. So let's say from Warner Archive, we got Day at the Races from the Marx Brothers. One of the few that are left not on Blu-ray from them, and one of the MGM movies, if I recall. A little long, but has the great sequence of Groucho selling Chico, or Chico selling Groucho the breeder's guide and the code book and all this stuff he needs to bet on a horse. It's one of their best gag sequences they've ever done, period. And there's a few more really good ones like that in here, but yeah, I'm just a huge fan of the Marx Brothers, and this has a commentary by author Glenn Mitchell, making a featurette on your marks, get set, go, and a few other things, but was just very excited to get this on. They put out Night at the Opera last year, the year before, and so I was psyched to get Day at the Races on Blue. Then we have That Guy Dick Miller. This is from Decalogue, from director Elijah Drenner, who I've had on the show, the pod, a few times, and actually talked to him about this earlier this year. So definitely check that interview out. But a great interview, or a great documentary about the life and times and work of character actor Dick Miller, who is just one of my favorites of all time and was in so many movies. It's just a fascinating story. So it's the story of that stuff, and then sort of also a then present day look at his life with he and his wife Lainey, who's just the sweetest woman, and how they lived together and how they met and all this. Just wonderful documentary. One of my favorites in a long time, and it's 10 years old now. But it also includes this movie Star Hops from 1978, which I guess Elijah said he got from Bob Murawski. They had the movie and they scanned it and gave it to him, no charge, to put on here, which is a wonderful thing. And that movie's never been on Blu-ray. I don't even know if that movie's been on DVD, to be honest. Directed by Barbara Peters, who did Humanoids from the Deep and some other stuff. Dick is only at the beginning of it. It's about a bunch of girls who take over a drive-in and try and make it their business, and it's, exploitation-y, sexy, but so super cool to have an extra bonus feature never on Blu-ray before included on that disc. So I was very psyched about that. Okay, so that's one. Then we have this is from Film Masters. This is called Redneck Miller. I talked about this on the show recently, but it is a regional Hicksploitation, blaxploitation movie that Quentin Tarantino, I guess, sort of rediscovered. I want to say about 10 years ago or so. He had a Grindhouse festival at the New Beverly, and this was one of the prints that he ran. I'd been looking for this movie for years, could not find it anywhere. There were not even, I don't think this movie ever got a home video release prior to this. Has never had a formal home video release or been screened theatrically outside the U.S. Has a commentary and liner notes from Justin Humphries. Very cool to get the background on this, but basically it's about a Southern DJ who has a very hotshot motorcycle, who gets the motorcycle stolen by someone who frames him for stealing some drugs, and then sort of this gang is after him, and they're sort of fighting back and forth, and it's a mystery also who set him up, and just an enjoyable Southern regional movie, like literally Hicksploitation and Blaxploitation mixed together, and yeah, just really special in that way, and hats off to Film Masters. The Blu-ray is stunning. It just looks gorgeous. All region disc, and yeah, just a neat discovery from this year. Okay, we have another Kino movie. We have Starting Over. This is Alan J. Pakula, but the script is by James L. Brooks, who of course did Broadcast News, and just a great, writer, filmmaker. And this is about Burt Reynolds splitting up with his then wife, played by Candice Bergen, who is ridiculous in this movie. She's got this sort of singing thing that she does that really funny. Like Candice Bergen really allowing herself to look silly. But so he's divorced. He joins a divorced men's group. There's a great group in there that kind of, they're sad sack kind of dudes. They meet every month or every week. I don't know. And there's kind of a battle for this church basement where they have their meetings with another divorced women's group, and they don't want to, have anything to do with each other. They don't like each other. But shot by Sven Nykvist, and really interesting for Pakula, who was doing those paranoid thrillers of the 70s, but just a really touching and ultimately sweet drama with some sadder moments, but a great performance from Burt. No mustache in this. And Jill Clayburgh is the one he sort of eventually hooks up with and begins another new relationship with. Where will that go is kind of what the movie's about, but definitely enjoyable. From 1979. We have, let's see here. All right, let's do this. Death Valley. Now, this had come out from Scream Factory, and I think it's still in print, actually. But this version from imprint is a little better than that version. I call this movie The Hitcher Jr. It's about a kid with divorced parents, played by Edward Herrmann is Peter Billingsley, who of course would go on to do Christmas Story. He's doing this before that. This is definitely not a kid's movie, which is interesting. But he's the kid in it. So in the beginning, he's leaving his dad in New York, Edward Herrmann, to go stay with his mom, Catherine Hicks, in Arizona with her new boyfriend, Paula Matt. And they are sort of doing this Old West vacation thing. And they come across a camper trailer that's got some people that have been killed. And the kid picks up a key piece of evidence that ends up helping identify the killer. And the killer's sort of tracking the kid. And so, like I said, sort of Hitcher Jr. in its way. He drives a creepy old 50s, almost like a 57 Chevy kind of car. But a good Paul LeMat performance from director Dick Richards. This has the commentary from the Blu-ray previously, and a new video essay by Jarrett Gahan, as well as an interview with the composer Dana Kaproff. But a nice release from imprint. I'm a big Death Valley fan. Another one from Sony that's a Blu-ray debut. This is Shotgun Stories from Jeff Nichols. He put out The Bike Riders this year. This is his debut film and still one of his best to date, I think. Wonderful, dark, revenge movie with Michael Shannon as sort of the lead brother of a group of brothers that are rivals because they share the same dad. And their dad bailed on them as a kid, and the mom kind of never forgave him and never was very good to these boys, and so they had to take care of each other. The dad dies. Michael Shannon and his brothers go to the funeral, even though they're not invited because the other family of brothers is having this funeral, and he says some inflammatory things about his dad, and it starts this sort of gang war between the brothers, and some people are killed, and it gets dark, and it's kind of like that idea of revenge. Where do you draw the line? What does it really do for you, ultimately? So just a really great movie. This has a commentary ported over from Jeff Nichols and an interview with him. And I'm just a big Jeff Nichols fan, so just neat to see this finally get a Blu-ray release. Let's see here. Conflict. This is from Warner Archive. Just a really fun Humphrey Bogart as the bad guy who may have killed his wife, to go out with his wife's sister creepiness. And is she dead or is she haunting him? That kind of story. It also has Sydney Greenstreet, so you have a little Maltese Falcon, Casablanca vibes. But this is one I saw last year, I think, for the first time. Maybe it was last year. But I just really enjoy Bogart in this. Like, he's not nice at all. And Greenstreet is, I want to say he's a cop or he's helping the cops. And it's like, will he get away with it? Did she even die? What's the story? And just a very enjoyable mystery. Another one from Kino, The Minus Man. This from Hampton Fancher, who's one of the writers on Blade Runner. And about a serial killer played by Owen Wilson, who likes to poison people in this way that makes it look like they kind of died naturally, a heart attack or something. And he gets to this small town. He starts working for a post office. We have a lot of his internal monologue, kind of just hearing like a little bit of why he does what he does, but it's a really almost, almost like a Badlandsy kind of, poetic vibe in some ways, but has a commentary from Hampton Fancher and the producer, moderated by Max Every. And yeah, just a movie that was a long time due on Blu-ray and finally came out this year. Brian Cox is in this. He plays the guy that he sort of ends up staying in a room at a house with Brian Cox and his wife, played by Mercedes Ruehl. Sheryl Crow is in here. Janine Garofalo works at the post office and kind of likes Owen Wilson's character. And it's interesting how he just sort of stops down from the killing for a little while to work at the post office. It's a very fascinating movie and a fascinating performance from Owen Wilson. Nice to get that on Blu-ray. Let's see here. One more from Warner Archive, The Mask of Fu Manchu. This is a very pre-code Boris Karloff, Myrna Loy, almost like a predecessor to some of the stuff in Big Trouble in Little China. Boris Karloff takes one of the most celebrated cinematic turns as the diabolical fiend Dr. Fu Manchu, and Myrna Loy plays his exotic daughter in this 1932 cult horror classic. This time the evil Fu Manchu patiently awaits the discovery of Genghis Khan's tomb, for he is certain that possession of Khan's mask and sword will enable him to rule the East and lead it to victory over the hated Western world. Definitely some dicey stuff in here in terms of how this is dated, but that's part of the pre-codeness of it. But there's some really cool, like, the set design stuff. I mean, it's like, it really does look like the temple in Big Trouble in Little China. I've never heard Carpenter cite it specifically, but commentary from film historian Greg Mank. Just one that's been MIA on Blu-ray for a long time. I know some folks are excited about this. It's definitely an interesting pre-code. Sadly, this has no features, but I really want to mention Clockwatchers getting a Blu-ray from Shout Factory. Jill Sprecker's debut film about a bunch of gals working at an office. I can't remember if it's like an accounting office, but it is an incredible cast, including Toni Collette, Parker Posey, Lisa Kudrow, Alana Ubach. And then you have folks like Paul Dooley and, there's a bunch of other folks that show up in this. But just really interesting look at office life and friendships that form in the office, comedy and drama, and just four ladies that are fantastic together in this, and a movie that doesn't get talked about as much anymore. But I was really excited to get this on Blu-ray. I love Clockwatchers. And lastly, this one, now this might be a cheat because I don't actually know when this is supposedly 2024. So this is an import Blu-ray of Hell's a Poppin', and it's a German import. I first noticed it on Diabolic DVD, had some copies of it in a different cover than this, and I put myself on the wish list, and I couldn't it never popped back up in their inventory. So I went to look at the German. I can't remember if I got it on Amazon Denmark or Amazon Germany or what, but it's a pretty good looking Blu-ray if you're into this wild movie from Olsen and Johnson, kind of a musical, just nuts. Like, this is a Joe Dante favorite. When you watch it, you'll understand why, because it has a Looney Tunes quality about it. It's a musical, but it's just so frenetic, so crazy, gag a minute kind of stuff. And I thought we weren't going to get a Blu-ray of it. I had an import DVD that I thought was the best I was going to do, but this is a Region B locked, I believe it's locked, import of Hell's Poppin', and definitely one that I was very excited to get. And I don't know if it does it have any features? Yeah, there's a commentary on it, but I can't remember if it's in English or not. But still just great to have this on Blu-ray. So that's Hell's Poppin', and that's it for my Blu-ray group. Like I said, some weird stuff in here, I'm sure, but thank you for hanging with me and listening along. Maybe there's some stuff in here you didn't know about or are interested in because of this, and I appreciate it. Thank you for your time. I'll be back soon with more stuff talking about physical media. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.